What's up, everybody? Welcome to Space Arena Ground Arena. BananaCrapshoot here today. What I'm going to do is go over my favorite deck from set 1 and how I've updated it to start set 2. I've seen some other versions out there. I don't really get the other versions. I don't think they don't change much, which is fine. Um, you don't have to change a lot to still be good with Han 2, but I think we can do more um, to cover his weakness of low hand size with more smuggle cards than what I've been seeing. I do think Han Command is a lot more flexible in set 2, but we'll just we'll go into it here. So how we're going to go over it, what makes the deck work, the flair of the deck, how we tech it out, the mulligan, what do we do with it, the sideboard, and other adjustments for other versions of the deck. So here is the list as I have it currently constructed. So here we have, just from the top, I'll just run through real quick: 3 Greedo, 2 Hotshot DL44 Blasters, 3 Battlefield Marine, 2 Spark of Rebellion, 3 Spark of Hope, 3 Ezra, 3 Drop Millennium Falcon, 2 Sundari Peacekeeper, 2 Spare the Target, 3 Tech, 3 Bright Hope, 3 Modded Cohort, 2 Chewbacca, 1 Zori Bliss, 3 Millennium Falcon, 2 Enfys Nest, 3 U-Wing Reinforcement, 2 Han Solo, 2 Fennec Shand, 2 Home 1, and 1 Reinforcement Walker. So that's the main deck. And then in the sideboard, we have 2 Bamboozle, 2 DJs, 2 Kiras, another Zori, a Change of Heart, and 2 Choose Sides. So we'll go through some of this a lot more, but that's the main deck at the moment. So what makes this work? Obviously Han Leader himself, his ability to play cards from our hand into our resource to go +1 a couple turns during the game. We can gain a lot more value than our opponent by playing better quality units than our opponent more often than they can. The 3 cards that really are all stars in this deck is Ezra. He's a 3/4 that we can play on turn 1 against aggro decks. And he can trade. We can get his ability off a couple times a game to draw a card, or at least look at a card, potentially play the top card of the deck, which is really strong. Gives us access to more cards. U-Wing Reinforcement, Han's the best U-Wing deck, and that doesn't change in set 2. We can still potentially, on the 5 resource turn, go up +2 to 7 and play U-Wing, which is a huge swing for us. Don't always have to do that, but it is a very popular and very strong play. And the new card that really helps drive the deck is Tech. He's a 3 cost 2/5, and then he gives all of our cards in our deck smuggle. You can smuggle them for +2 cost, basically. So it gives every card in our deck smuggle. It is a really strong addition to the deck by allowing us to play more cards from our resource row, because Han's main weakness is that he can have a low hand size because we're using our hand to play resources. So having access to smuggle, where the cards that we can resource, that we are playing as resources later on in the game, we can play them when we don't have much of a hand, is really strong. So Tech and potentially enabling that for us is big. So the Han Solo Leader, like I said already, allows us to play +1 resource. You have to be careful when you do it. You can safely, most of the time, Han resource 2 times before the deploy turn. You're only going to have like 1 or no cards in hand at that point. So you got to be careful when you do it. A lot of this comes with reps and playing the game, knowing against what decks you can safely Han ability and when, and some of it depends on what's in your hand too. Really strong tempo swings, very susceptible to hand hate, like I already talked about. Ezra and Tech, I kind of already talked about. They allow, both cards allow us to be more consistent. Tech because we can play more cards from our resource row. Ezra because he allows us to look at the top card and play the top card of our deck and potentially filter. And Ezra trades really well in aggro. Tech not so much. So then the flair of the deck, we already talked about U-Wing, but the flair, the 3-drop Millennium Falcon that comes in ready. We can play it on turn 1. Super strong. It's also, I found it to be very effective against control decks. If you have to play right, but a lot of times you can play it and bounce it, so they can't effectively remove it If you have other units, you can use it to make power the dark side worse and bounce it back to hand to save it. So Millennium Falcon's been pretty good in the control decks for me. Ewing you already know about. So Han Solo and Fennec. Han Solo is really good because he has first strike. Fennec is also really good because she has a higher ceiling where she can swing up. And the way Fennec really works for us is with Han's ability, the Han leader, to, after we resource, when we have to destroy resources and they get defeated and go to our discard pile, we can kind of build our discard pile to make Fennec really, really good late game. So that she can go for like 4 or 5, sometimes 6 damage, depending on the units that we have defeated, events we've played, and resources we're defeating. Fennec I have found to be really strong against Snoke, because her on attack ability doesn't get the -2/-2. So she's been really good to remove Snoke's. She can sometimes trade with a crate. It's not the greatest way, but if you build it's not super consistent, but it can happen. But Fennec's a really strong addition. Has a lower floor than Han, but a much higher ceiling. So then the tech out. So we got the 3 copies of the 4-drop Bright Hope. Bright Hope is still really, really strong into a lot of decks. It's still good against Fire Spray. It's still good against other Han decks. It's good against aggro decks. Bright Hope is just really good overall. That is going to stay. The Sundari Peacekeeper I found to be a very effective 3-drop for us. It's a 3/5 on attack and restore 2, so it adds a little bit of sustain on top of having good damage, and it's hard to remove it. We can use it. It's a possible turn 1 play for us to take out an aggro unit in the aggro matchup. Chewbacca, I know a lot of people don't play Chewbacca. I think Chewbacca is awesome in here. He's good against Boba Fett. He's good against aggro. He's good against other mid-range. He is really strong unit overall. We can play him on the Sabine or Kylo deploy turns by resourcing and going up. Chewbacca is just very effective, I've found. And the 6-drop Falcon, I also haven't seen this one in a lot of lists, and it doesn't really make sense to me either. It is a really good space unit. It can ambush from hand, and it can smuggle, and the smuggle cost is the same as the play cost. You don't see that much. So it's a really good unit. We can play early in a resource row to close late. It's a really good card to play if they ice our Han on his deploy. So we still have a good 6-drop unit we can play. And then the Hotshot DL44 Blaster is another one, almost always gets played to resource row and then gets played late with smuggle because we get the action economy at that point, so we can play it and attack right away at +2. It's really good on Han leader. It's really good on Han unit. It's really good on Fennec. It's really good on Enfys Nest. It's good on a lot of our units to close a game late. So in the Mulligan first control decks, a lot of times we're looking to play 2 units on turn 1. A lot of times we're looking for a Greedo and a Battlefield Marine. That helps us play around Power of the Dark Side, which is like the most efficient removal tool. Against aggro, we're looking for Falcon if they are going to play space units, and they're going to play ground. We can play an Ezra or Sundari Peacekeeper. This allows us to trade and live. Ezra allows us to see more cards, and Sundari lets us sustain a little bit and heal our base if we take damage, and the Falcon owns the space arena in the early game. Against mid-range, if we feel like we're playing against a 25 health base and we have the ability to race them, and that we want to be the beatdown, you can also look for that same Greedo and Battlefield Marine early play. Or you could, like against aggro, look for Ezra if we want some card advantage, and Sundari if we're looking for some sustain as well. Modded cohorts, Bright Hope and Chewie are also good to look for in a mid-range modded cohort. I like a lot with Han. We can play it on our 3 resource turn and have it trade against anything pretty much and live. Like Bright Hope and Chewie, like I've already talked about. Both of those are really good Sentinel units in their respective arenas. So overall, what do we do with this? Turn 1, you're looking to gain early advantage, looking for the Han ability. You don't always have to use the Han ability on turn 1. Sometimes just playing a Battlefield Marine is perfectly fine. On turn 5 is a lot of the times when we're going to go +2 resources, because on 5 resources we can Han ability 6 deploy attack and go to 7. If we don't have a 7-drop, you have a Reinforcement Walker or a Bright Hope. I think it says 9-drop in here. That's a typo. It should be 8-drop. If you don't have a 7-drop, you have an 8-drop. You can wait until you're on the normal 6 resource turn and then jump from 6 to 8. That's also really good to do sometimes, depending on the situation. I have already gone, instead of going from 5 to 7, I've gone from 6 to 8 and played like a home 1 and then pulled a good 3-drop and then got really ahead and had restore, and then I have this 8-drop when they were playing 6-drop, and it's still a really big tempo swing. It's okay. You don't always have to do the 5 to 7 if you don't have your U-wing or your Han or your Fennec. It's okay to go to 6 to 8 and play a home 1 or play a Reinforcement Walker, because those can also be game swinging plays. Into aggro decks and more aggro and the like lower to the ground mid-range decks, we're looking to trade early with units that can trade and survive, and then win with a much longer straight game. They win with a much stronger late game than they have, because we can get to our late game faster, so we can win faster, so we can have a better late game before they can. Into control, play around Power of the Dark Side, use U-wing to refill the board. You can win by tempoing them out, getting our late game before them. That's kind of the deal with Han. You get to your late game 2 to 3 turns before everybody else. Smuggle adds a lot. Smuggle adds a lot of value to our deck. And since we can outpace and out-tempo our opponents, Smuggle is an awesome mechanic to make Han's weakness not as much of a weakness. So if you're going to try to rip apart my hand or force throw me, I'm not as tilted by it with this version of the deck, because I have cards I can play for my resource, or I can play Falcon, I can play Tech, I can play Zori. There's cards I have that I can play to still enable my game plan. The sideboard options, Bamboozle is really good against upgrade heavy decks. There's going to be Darksabers running around. You're going to see Mandalorian decks running around with upgrades. You're going to see Kylo decks running around with Fallen lightsabers. So, and the blue hero decks are still going to be running Jedi lightsabers. So, Bamboozle is a great way for us to deal with those upgrade heavy decks. DJ and Tech is a nasty combo. I have it in the sideboard. So the way this interaction works is Tech gives DJ another instance of smuggle. So Tech allows DJ to smuggle for 5 resources. And when DJ is smuggled into play, you take control of an enemy resource. And then what's nasty about it was with the Han leader, if we Han ability, smuggle DJ, steal a resource, that when we have to destroy a resource, we can destroy the resource we stole from our opponent, permanently making them go -1 resource. So the DJ Tech combo is nasty. I haven't found it to be super consistent, and I haven't found that I really needed it. So right now I have DJ in the sideboard. I like Tech main board a lot. I have DJ in the sideboard because it is a really nasty combo, and if I'm playing against other decks that are going to look to ramp or try to out-ramp me, I'll side DJ in. And then that's when I look for that combo. But I don't feel like we need it main deck. Choose sides is better than Change of Heart. We choose sides instead of Change of Heart in sideboard. We can give them our weakest unit and take the strongest unit. And what's nice about it is we don't lose the unit we steal at the end of the round. So in this deck, we're looking for lots of good trades in our favor. Choose sides is another one where we can make trades in our favor. Kira in this deck is good in the sideboard. We can side her in to help deal with problematic cards we don't want to see. We can make that crate cost 11. We can make Snoke cost 11. Kira is pretty solid, but I like her as a sideboard option, not a main deck option, because her stats are a little weak. Her ability is very strong. That's why I like her in the sideboard. Some adjustments. You could go heavier in a smuggle. You could go, I think one of the ways you could build Han Green is to go more low to the ground and go really wide. And Han ability to play go really wide really early, and then like smuggle better units later. I think that's a version you could do, but I haven't liked it as much. Um, on built going off of that, you could play like a zero hand strategy and play almost all smuggle cards, and then like try to empty your hand as much as possible. And then just smuggle all the time. Because then you make those hand removal cards a lot worse. And then you could add more toolbox removal options. We only have 2 spare the targets. You could add some other removal options. You could add some capture if you need to. But I think Han in set 2 does have a lot of flexibility. I think there's the casino version. You could go for a super ram version, and you could run the resupplies and Spark of Hopes. You could really try to super ramp. You can go really space heavy now, or you can keep it almost the same and just add, a couple cards to help. But again, here's the deck list. I'm very happy with it so far. Spark of Hope I like more than resupply. It's cheaper, and then if the unit we get back, we can potentially smuggle later if Tech's out, or if Tech is the unit that's defeated. So there's a lot of stuff here I like in this deck. Enfys Nest is another one that could be an adjustment. I think I might like Mercenary Company better. It's the same cost and has the overwhelm and has 1 more health than Enfys Nest. So Enfys ability is cool. Han doesn't really need it, and honestly Fennec hasn't really needed it. So I think Enfys Nest for me is probably going to end up Mercenary Company by the time this goes live. That's probably a change I'm making from this, is Mercenary Company in and Enfys Nest out. It's probably different. Another one I'm looking at testing with more is L337. There's a lot of cards that capture. Cunning Villainy has Relentless Pursuit, and green decks have a couple ways to capture. So with Take Captive and that Legal Authority. So L337 might be one that we add to our sideboard to add a couple ways to rescue our units potentially. So that's another one you can look at. But overall, this deck has been very solid in my testing so far. I really like it. It has a good amount of smuggle. It has really good top end, and we can trade early. And yeah, it's just really, really strong so far. And I think it's the best version you can start with of Han Command for Shadows of the Galaxy. So that'll be it for this deck tech video. Thanks for stopping by, and we will see you in the arenas.